Few missions matter more than helping people live healthier, happier, and longer lives. But turning that mission into reality at scale is one of the greatest challenges of our time. In this podcast, I speak with the people who are taking that challenge head on, health entrepreneurs who have dedicated their personal and professional lives to creating maximal impact, the true impact junkies. My name is Daniel. Join me as we talk through the stories behind the impact, the wins, the losses, the ups and downs, with the hope of inspiring many more people to join the mission and the health revolution. Today's guest is Amber Dosdos from Ambitious Coaching, a person who truly shows that once she took the first step to creating change, kept momentum, and never looked back. Welcome to Impact Junkies. Amber, welcome. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here in Copenhagen.
I'm so excited.
And we had a good evening yesterday. We walked through town, saw the sights.
Yeah, it's
and I think it's quite I wasn't even the one living through it through your eyes, but I think it's quite a jump from where you have been. Both just the fact that you can say yes to, all right, let's walk across town.
Yeah.
But also the journey and the experiences that have come through starting as a health entrepreneur and running your own business. What are some of your reflections on that?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, the thought of where I started, at my heaviest weight when I started my health journey, like thinking about walking across the city was something I definitely couldn't have done. But then also being in a city I've always wanted to go to for a reason such as this is just, it's so impactful. And to look back on all of the different experiences I've had since joining Lenus, that this opportunity has given me is just life-changing. It's amazing.
Amazing. I'd like to just start a bit in the helicopter. And if you're going to give me just a couple of headlines on like what characterizes your approach as a coach or what's key to that, let's just paint that picture for me before we dive into the story of it.
I think lived experience is probably one of my key pillars. Is I've been through it. I started my first diet when I was 8 and grew up very much in that diet forever kind of mentality and been through every kind of situation you can imagine. But also, so we bring a lot of compassion and empathy to our coaching and trying constantly to meet our clients where they're at and with a lot of understanding, because it's not, you can't, I don't believe that you can coach people into making lifelong sustainable habits through shame and through guilt and everything like that. So yes, we hold them accountable, and yes, we are going to help you get to your goals and hold your hand while you do it, but always going to meet you with, compassion and love and empathy as much as we can.
Lived experiences, compassion, love, and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's had an effect, I would say. So let me just give you a bit of a picture of what's actually come out of that. Now, these are some numbers which I'm sure you haven't seen before or know of. So just to paint a picture of what has that approach actually done. You've impacted a lot of, especially women's lives in the time that you have been a coach and health entrepreneur. And they are extremely satisfied with the product you deliver. I mean, most of them stay with you for over 9 months. So it's quite a long journey with a lot of interactions. And in that time, I would say real implementation and change happens. I mean, your clients have tracked just around 60,000 habits, which is like the core of a lifestyle change, 60,000 total actions that people are taking daily. And they logged just around 150,000 activities in the app and walked just over 2 billion steps combined.
Incredible.
As a result of your coaching.
Amazing.
What are your thoughts on that when you hear that?
I mean, that's life-changing, right? I think especially coming from, like, thinking back to where I was and when I started and how lonely it can really feel, like to know that, me and my team have been able to be a part of that incredible journey for our clients is why I wanted to do this, right? So that other people didn't have to go through it alone, that they could see, someone who's been through it, and has come out the other side and has not been maintaining that it is possible, because I think a lot of our clients are coming from a place where they feel really beaten down and really discouraged. And so for us to be able to motivate them enough to be able to try again and to believe in themselves enough to hit those kind of statistics is it's what it's all about for
Amazing.
us. It's amazing.
And when you said looking back on your journey, I think it makes sense for us to also look back on your journey. So, in order to understand the type of person that you are and the coach that you are and where you are now, I think it's important for us to take a step back and look at where you came from and where it all started. So, could you just take me all the way back to
Sure,
start
yeah.
around there?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Wisconsin, still live there now. And I have two sisters, one older, one younger. Um, and we were primarily raised by a single mom who was working a lot. So at a young age, we started kind of developing not the best relationships with food. And so, my parents split up when I was 5, which I think, kind of hindsight, looking back, there's a lot of fracture that happens. And definitely food kind of turned into a little bit of like a comfort system. And, the first time that I remember like kind of sneaking food and having some kind of off relationship with food was, when I was as young as like 7, 8,
Mm,
and started, you know, using that as something that I could control, and in a life that was a little bit turmoil at
mm,
times when I was a kid. And yeah, but I grew up with a single mom. Like I said, she worked a lot. And so a lot of the times we were on our own, and, just used food to, we
mm,
used the food that was available, and so when you're that age, it's a lot of like convenient food and
mm.
stuff that's easy to make. And
Can
I
I
w-
ask you a question about
yeah.
that mechanism of I guess in a time where you're quite young, navigating a lot of change,
Mm.
right? And finding something which is like a constant, or that you is that the role that food can play or
Yeah.
played in that
Yeah.
situation?
I mean, when my parents split up, it went from, living in the same house that I'd always known and a lot of familiarity to, okay, now, my dad's in one situation, we're in one situation. We moved to a completely new town in with my grandparents. So it was just a lot of like upheaval and a lot of different aspects of my life changing. And it was like the one thing that, especially at that age, that you can control for the most part is food, right? And
Mm.
you just go to what's available. And yeah, it just kind of became that one for sure constant thing that was always there.
Without necessarily, I assume, being aware of that
Mm,
mechanism. I guess it's
yeah.
just like let's say what felt comforting.
Yeah. And
Or
I think it's like, kids are resilient, and I think they're always going to look for ways to kind of self-soothe. So I think in a way it was also just kind of, it was like a soothing thing for me, just like, okay, I know that this is just always there, and like, it just, yeah, it became that very constant thing. Um,
is there a point where during that age, I know it's a long time ago, but
yeah.
looking at that, where you kind of become aware of that, or does that only come later?
Yeah, I think all of this kind of like big brain stuff,
Yeah.
like I think it's just kind of looking back now, with what I've learned and all of the different lived experience that I have now, and kind of going through my weight loss journey and kind of unpacking a lot
Mm.
of the mental stuff that goes along with it. It's kind of, you realize now, like looking back,
In
and
hindsight.
it's like I wish I could go back and like tell little me that, you don't need to, everything's going to be okay, but at the
Mm.
time you also don't know,
Mm.
in a life that feels a little bit chaotic a lot of the times, it's like you're just trying to find that one thing that feels certain.
What else? What else would you have told little Amber?
Yeah, I mean that a lot of she's going to go through a lot of hardships and a lot of times where she feels really knocked down, a lot of low lows, but there's also going to be a lot of, bright points in her life, and to maybe focus on those a little bit more. And, to always try to remain positive, because in the end, like, everything will be okay.
Well, it seemed you achieved that without having to go back and tell
Yeah,
yourself
yeah, yeah.
that. All right, so you moved, and what did things look like then for you?
Yeah, yeah. So we moved in with my grandparents on my
Yeah.
mom's side. And, as grandparents do, they definitely like to, spoil us and take care of us. And we grew up in a family where food was love, right? And so, and I think a lot of people experience that where, food became celebratory. It was like, if we had a good day at school, if we got a good grade, it was like, oh, let's go out for dinner. Or, if we had a bad day, it was like, oh, let's go get some ice cream, make you feel better, that whole kind of thing. And, yeah, so we lived with my grandparents for, I think, 2 years. And then we moved to what I call my hometown, where I lived for most of my life. But yeah, I mean, my childhood for the most part was great.
Yeah.
We had it was fun. I played sports. I was really into softball. I played softball for a lot of my life. Played basketball. I had a lot of friends. Did theater once I got to middle school. So, yeah, it was like my life was for the most part really great. So
Interesting dynamic that you mentioned with using food as, I guess it just goes to show that it wasn't just you using food as a
yeah,
constant, right? There's also an environmental aspect to it,
hmm
and if food is used to celebrate, if food is
yeah,
used to soothe,
yeah.
if food is used for that, then it kind of, well, what's your perspective on that? Because I think it's a pattern that potentially many people have, but don't necessarily realize, well, which impact it could have.
Yeah, and it's something interesting now that we talk a lot about with clients
Mm.
is like food just can't food I think in the grand scheme of things can't ever truly be neutral, because food is culture. Food is, celebration. So like it's okay to, and this is something that I had to work through for myself, is it's okay that food brings you comfort. It's okay that food brings you joy. It's okay if you maybe eat something that's comforting when you're upset. I think the biggest thing and where I fell under was food became my only source of those things, right? And so I think it was and that's what we work a lot with clients on now is okay, yeah, it's okay that you had, your favorite dish when you were upset, but maybe next time let's try something else, to kind of soothe or
Mm.
to, get that dopamine to make you feel a little bit better rather than just turning to food. Because I think so many of us, because we're inundated with that from like a young age, it's just what you know.
Right, right. So with this relationship with food, I assume that you're also gaining a lot of weight during
Yeah.
those. So what
Yes.
did that look like
Yeah.
as a young child?
Yeah. I mean, I was always the biggest kid in class, both the height and width.
Mm.
And I remember specifically when I was in like fifth or sixth grade, going back to school shopping, and like that was the first time that I had to shop in like the plus size women's section. Um and I think as a kid you're kind of blind to it. You don't really understand because, you know, for the most part my mom tried to keep the talks about our bodies pretty neutral. Um even though I was aware that I was bigger than other people and things like that, you don't really understand it, I think, fully at that age. But yeah, by the time I was in sixth grade, I was well over 200 pounds already.
So that becomes quite limiting at some point. I
Yeah.
remember seeing on your social media, you spoke about a specific moment or a hug that
hmm
someone gave you. I think sometimes it can be kind of, people often have these like pivotal moments where someone
Yeah.
has said something that just sticks with you
Yeah.
for a long time. What was that moment for
Yeah.
you?
I was probably 5 or 6. And it was the first time that I was ever aware that my body was different. Yeah, I was over at a friend's house and we were in the kitchen and their grandma was over and she gave me a hug and she said, "Oh, you've got a lot to hang on to." And in the moment, like it just made me acutely aware of my body for the very first time. I'm like, I didn't know even necessarily if it was like, if that was supposed to be a good thing or a bad thing,
It's
but
also a quite vague statement,
yeah,
right? It's like,
yeah,
yeah.
right. It made me it just made me aware of my body. And then my friend's mom responded with, "Mom, you can't say things like that to her." And then in that moment, it clicked. I'm like, oh, that's not a good thing. That's bad to have more to hang on to, right? And so that was the first time, and you're talking 5, 6, like that makes that's a lasting scar that
Yes.
I'll have for the rest of my life. Like I will always remember that moment. And then, so from then on, like that's when you start to kind of compare yourselves to others. And, growing up, it was like, I was always aware that I was bigger than everyone. And, um, it was just, I wasn't aware that what I was doing with food and everything like that was, impacting that. So,
Mm.
um,
Comparison's an interesting one, right? Because
mm,
like there's multiple aspects to it. Because at some levels, comparison can actually be part of the inspiration. Like you'd see a lot of your clients
yeah.
might be comparing themselves to you or your story, and that might inspire them to take action. Then
Mm,
you have the flip side of comparison, which can be ultimately or fully a negative approach,
yeah.
right? So, what are your thoughts on that?
It is interesting because, we and I will preach this all the time. I'm like, don't compare your journey to others. Don't compare. But at the same point in time, like you do get inspired by others, right? And I think the most important thing is to have the knowledge of like comparison versus inspiration, right? I think it's good to be inspired by others, right? Everyone takes inspiration from other things and from other people. But I think it's important to separate that from comparison, because then you almost become like too self-critical, because it's okay to be inspired. Like for me, right? Like I get inspired by other coaches and what they're doing. But if I were to sit there and compare every single thing that I'm doing to what they're doing, like it can make you feel badly about yourself because maybe you're not at the same place where they are and you only ever focus. I think comparison makes you innately more attuned to focus on the negative rather than the positive.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good point. And is that where it leads you to? And those that we're talking early
absolutely.
teenage days
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
and focusing on comparison. What?
yeah. I mean, all of my friends were thinner than me, and so I was, then I started to kind of be like, okay, if they're if my body's getting picked apart, which primarily was by me, because I'm comparing myself to others, um, then you start taking steps that you think are going to work to help you get to where they are.
Mm.
So, I remember in middle school, because my mom's always struggled with her weight as well. She went through a pretty big weight loss after my younger sister was born. Um, and like she followed Weight Watchers and stuff. And so I started asking her if I could like go to Weight Watchers meetings with her and stuff when I was in middle school,
That's early. Yeah.
and I would start sneaking like her Slim Fast shakes into my school lunches. And at the time, it's like I obviously didn't understand how a calorie deficit worked or anything like that. To me, it was like, okay, these are gonna fix me, right? Like if I drink this shake, uh, that'll solve my problems.
This
Like,
is the
yeah,
solution,
exactly.
right?
If I go to these Weight Watchers meetings, like then that's all I have to do, and like I'll like this is gonna fix me, and I'll be like everyone else. And so um, that just started almost a lifetime of yo-yo dieting. Trying like just hopping from one thing to a next to the next to try to be like everyone else and try to shrink my body so that way, because it is really othering when you're young and overweight, because kids are cruel
Yeah.
in to everyone, but I think especially when there's something about you that makes you stand out.
It can be rough,
Yeah, it can
in the
be.
schoolyard
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And so it was like I just wanted more so to look like my friends, so that way it was like I could just blend in.
So beyond the, what do you call them, slim fast shakes?
Yeah, yeah,
Beyond
yeah,
how did
yeah.
that affect like your general relationship with food at that point? Because
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I think I was looking at those as a get out of jail free card almost. It
mm,
was like, because I wasn't changing anything else, that I was doing. I would have the Slim Fast Shake for lunch, but then go home and, eat an entire box of Little Debbie snacks. And so it wasn't like, I just looked at it as like, okay, as long as I do this, like I'm making progress, or like this is going to help me. But it just kind of, I think that was like the first experience that I had with like over restricting, and um, that led to developing binge eating when I was probably around 12 was the first time that I like ever really remember doing it. And that was because, I was over restricting heavily throughout the day, eating, some kind of diet thing that was around the house for breakfast or something really small and then a Slim Fast Shake for my lunch. And then, of course, I was super hungry by dinner. And so by the time I'd get home, then it was like I would binge and,
I'd like to understand a bit more of some of these mechanics
yeah,
around
yeah,
binge eating. If you could unpack that a little bit more for me.
yeah.
So what is binge eating technically, and yeah, what does it look like?
Yeah, and it can look a little bit different for everyone. I
Mm.
think for me, it was definitely driven by emotions, definitely driven by over restriction, um, and for me, it was very much a compulsion thing, right? Like I would come home after school, um, hungry and maybe stressed out. So there's always for me some kind of like psychological, emotional trigger for me. Um, but I would go through periods when I would binge where I would almost black out. Like I didn't even realize what I was doing. And then, and a lot of people experience that because, and I talk a lot about, especially for me, because I really want to help people understand that there's a difference between maybe eating a little bit more than usual on a holiday and you feel overly full versus binging, right? Because the big part with binging is that there is that emotional element and, um, there is that kind of shame and a lot of emotion behind it. So for me, it was kind of channeling everything that I was feeling, especially in developmental years, like teenage years, right? Into that act. And it
Mm.
was like I would just eat anything that I could get my hands on. And once the episode, like the binge episode was over, it's almost like you come to, and then you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even realize what I was doing. And
Because you're talking about eating to a point where you black out, like
yeah,
literally.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's very scary. It
yeah.
can be like, um, because it's very hard to, it's really hard to understand. And binge eating is such a complex thing. And, um, but yeah, I mean, for so many people, and I talk with clients like this all the time, where it's just like it's like an insatiable hunger. And like you may even be in the moment aware of what's happening, but you can't stop, right? And a lot of the times, if you look behind, the science behind binge eating, a lot of the times it is, driven by something psychological and maybe unhealed trauma and stuff like that. And, so to have the perspective of understanding more about binging and for what it actually is now and being able to look back, like, it's so interesting because I can look back and kind of pinpoint like, of course, all of this kind of chaos in my life when I was younger and everything that I was feeling about my body and everything that I was
Mm.
going through, like it makes sense why it kind of led me there. But yeah, I mean, I started binging when I was 12 and really had to work through it on my own once I started my weight loss journey. And I was 28 at the time. So you're talking most of my life.
I think that's another interesting perspective. Also, when you say that a lot of people deal with it, right, and kind of using that tool that you had to soothe yourself, but then it gets packed into something extreme, and there's
Mm.
shame, and there's all of
Hmm.
these emotions going on. But what kind of support did you get, or what kind of support is there? Do you think for
Yeah. I
this
mean,
mechanism?
I think for me, I didn't really have any,
Mm.
and to, to give my family credit, it's not that they never tried to help me. I think, um, I can remember multiple times in my life, my mom trying to talk to me about my weight, but you also you have to be ready to have that conversation, right? And so I think for a lot of the time and a lot of my life, I would almost pretend that that wasn't an issue for me, right? Like it didn't happen. And so I would try to just block it out.
Bit of denial.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, now there are so many amazing therapists and ones that even specialize in eating disorders, binge eating. And like I started going to therapy last year for the first time. And my therapist, she actually specializes in eating disorders, specifically binge eating. And it's interesting because when I got paired up with her, I didn't even know that. And so during our first session, we kind of were talking about things, and she was like, "Oh, it's interesting that, you know, you signed up with me because this is my specialty." And so it's even been nice to further unpack that with her. But yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, therapy is great for so many reasons, but I think specifically for people who suffer with binging, um, because so much of the time it is us pushing other feelings down. To be able to actually talk through it
Mm.
is super helpful.
Even in hindsight,
Yeah.
in the spot that you are now, still
Right.
unpacking these things.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
like quite a dark spot or period of your life there. What happened? What else happened in that time?
Yeah. Yeah. So
You're in high school now, I
yeah,
believe,
yeah,
right?
I went,
Yeah.
yeah, I was in high school, and, um, you know, typical teenage things and, you know, going through that. And most of my high school experience was fairly chill, you know, pretty normal. But yeah, I mean, I still, again, was, you know, always the biggest one in my friend group. Um, and then my senior year of high school, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and diagnosed terminal about halfway through my first semester of my senior year.
So it was
So
noticed quite late then.
yeah, yeah. And so for my last semester of my high school career, I was going back and forth to spend time with my dad as he was passing. So I would spend 4 days a week with him and only go to school 1 day a week. And so um, trying to manage that and still go to school, still keep up on my schoolwork, like that time in my life was when it was probably the worst.
Yeah.
Just,
Understandably.
yeah. And especially once I got my driver's license, it was like then the reliance and like the availability to like fast food where I could go get the food, you know, binge in private almost and then hide the evidence. Like that's when that behavior really started. And so when I was driving back and forth to go see my dad, like that's primarily what I did. Right. And then it was, it was like I was living almost two lives. Like I had this like secret life where I was really struggling with food and like internal emotions. And it was like almost like when I would get home or like be around my friends, it was like I would snap into a different persona, right? And like try to act like nothing was happening and like that didn't happen. And I got really good at kind of like flipping between those two. And I think, you know, it's just kind of a trauma response and
Right.
kind of protecting yourself almost.
So I guess now all of these components are coming
Yeah.
together, right? The comfort food, now freedom, accessibility
Yeah.
of, being able to drive somewhere, hide the evidence and
Yeah.
so on, but also a quite, traumatic circumstances
Mm.
going on at the same time. So it just exacerbates
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
problem there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I graduated high school in 2009. And then, yeah, went to college. And my first 2 years, I went to a local community college. So I was still living at home and then transferred to a bigger university to finish out my degree. Um, and that was, again, you know, when you get that little sense of freedom and you feel like almost like Big Brother isn't watching you as much, you know, because my mom's not there. And, um, you know, I was kind of on my own. And when you have this, when you have binge eating, it's kind of like this monster that just kind of always like roils inside of you,
Mm.
trying to like break free. And so, and any sense of like freedom that you get, it's like, oh, we're going to take advantage of that, you know? So yeah, I mean, college it was hard, you know, and I was living with three of my very best friends. They're still my very best friends today. And again, it was kind of like, I remember them in their own kind of ways, like trying to talk to me about it. But I just wasn't ready to hear it at that point, and just kind of always just kept pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off. And
So it seems like there's just multiple circumstances which keep
mm,
pushing you further along
mm-hmm,
that same direction. But I
yeah,
mean, at some point you stop and make
yeah,
talk to me. When did that happen, and
mm,
what what were the circumstances around
yeah,
that?
yeah. My kind of final, like my breaking point, was in 2018. I was 28 and, had all the things. I was pre-diabetic. I had high blood pressure. All of my hormonal levels were being impacted. And again, it's like, that. But even knowing all that, I just wasn't ready to make that change until, um, so the apartment that I was living in at the time is still the apartment that I live in now. And there's about 20 steps up to my upper level apartment. And I was living alone at the time, and I was carrying in groceries. And I remember getting about halfway up the flight of stairs and dropped everything, groceries rolling down all the stairs. And I just like buckled over, and I couldn't breathe. Like I could not catch my breath. And I was scared. Like for the first time ever in my life, like that was the first time where I was like, I'm scared.
Was it a wake up call of
Yeah.
some kind?
And I just remember thinking like, I can't do this anymore. I this is it. Like I can't do this, because in that moment I just had so many flash forwards in my head of like, if this is where I'm at now, where am I going to be when I'm 30, when I'm 35? Like, where is this going to lead me? And I didn't know anything about how to start a proper health journey, let me tell
Mm-mm.
you. But yeah, I just remember saying, I can't do this anymore. And the very next day going into work, I was managing a Sephora at the time, and went in, and one of my best friends was working with me, and I knew she had access to a gym at her apartment complex. And I was like, "Hey, do you want to like go work out with me?" And she kind of looked at me like, "What?" And
So it's a bit of
yeah,
a
she's
new
like, "You
interaction.
are asking me?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I want to start going to the gym." And she's like, "Okay." And so yeah, the next day we went over and went into her apartment gym, and my first workout was I walked on the treadmill for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember like one being kind of discouraged because of how quickly I got winded, but also being proud because I'm like, that was the first intentional exercise that I had done like ever,
Right,
like in my
right,
adult
right,
life at
right.
least. And just something in me, it just felt like I was ready, right? Like I was saying, like all those other times where people had tried to talk to me, and all those other times where I tried to do a diet, like it just never felt right until this time. Like something inside of me was just like, I don't care how long it takes me. Like this time is going to be different.
Right there on those steps.
Yeah.
I like to understand because you already made this decision to change, or you initiated it the day
Mm.
after.
Hmm.
I'm curious, like how far along that line of thought did you get right there on the 10th step? Like,
Yeah.
is it there you kind of made that decision, or what
Yeah.
did?
Yeah, I like got up, picked up everything. I remember going into my apartment, and like, I, I started looking through like my clothes to see if there was anything that I could work out in. Like, I just remember being
Already
like,
then?
yeah, like,
S-
yeah, I mean,
Right.
like I said, and I think everyone has that moment. Like I talk with clients about this all the time, right? Like there's your why moment. Like something happens where you're like finally ready to take your health and yourself seriously, right? And unfortunately, for a lot of people, it is having that like rock bottom moment where sometimes it does scare you, right? Like maybe you go to the doctor and they're like, "Hey, like your internal markers aren't great, like you're at risk of becoming diabetic, like
Mm.
or you're at risk of developing heart disease." And like unfortunately sometimes it is that like shock that people have to have in order for it to be like, okay, I need to take it seriously. And for me, that was that moment where I was just like, I truly cannot do this
Right, right.
anymore.
Because you already had the other information, your
Yeah. Yeah.
biomarkers, your blood
Yeah.
work, and you're at,
Yeah.
I assume, the heaviest weight that you've been
Yeah.
at. Where are we at roughly there?
Yeah. I was about 305
Right.
pounds.
But it
Yeah.
was the wake up call of the
Yeah.
steps and not being able to
I think
handle.
because it was the first time where I, it was like the gravitas of like everything that all of those things that I already knew, it was like in that moment, like really affected me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
And like, it was like the first time where it felt like my body was really failing me. And like,
That's scary.
that scared me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially being 28, you
Right.
know, like my life's just getting started and like, I don't want it to end, you know? So
A willingness to live.
yeah.
And you already went up and tried to find your gym clothes
Yeah.
already
Yeah. I
there.
was like, do I have anything that is going to work here? Yeah.
We'll try those steps again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where did that take you? I guess it's small steps, right? Because I mean, now we're talking 5 minutes on the treadmill
Yeah. Yeah.
as you know, your first intentional
Yeah.
actions, but still taking intentional action, which I think is the trickiest thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you're actually already implementing something by yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I started really slow. Because I had this like thought with myself of, okay, if I really want this to be different, then I need to almost do everything differently than I had tried before, right? Like I tried all the extremes. I tried cutting everything out. I tried every diet with a name out there. And so I was just like, okay, let's just take it slow, take it easy. What can I change right now? You know?
What was that?
And so for me, it was walking. I just set myself a goal of walking 30 minutes a day. I started packing my lunches instead of going out to eat for them. And then I switched from like full sugar soda to diet soda and water. Those were like, and I focused on that for probably like 2 months before I made any other changes because I was like, I just need, this is stuff that is easy, is feasible, is something that I can stick to. And that's all I did.
So where did that awareness come from? Because I mean, I'm sure looking back, you're kind of thinking, okay, I did the right things. And
Yeah.
it's often what you'd also advise people to do, potentially, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
think small. What's actually achievable now?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get that, build habits based on that,
Yeah.
and then take it from there. Because that's actually already a toolbox starting to develop, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was just, like I said, like I tried everything.
So let's just
before.
do the opposite now.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, okay, we're just going to do everything differently than we have
Right.
before and see if that works.
And what did your surroundings? I mean, you already mentioned your friend when you said, "Let's go to the gym together tomorrow." I was like, "What?" You know.
Yeah.
So I assume your environment must have, or people around you must have noticed you now taking action.
Yeah,
No.
it was interesting. And I think a lot of people who are on a weight loss journey will say like you don't want people to know that you're on a weight loss journey because
Why
people
not?
I think people start kind of treating you differently and like I remember because I was just doing this for me, right? Like I wasn't doing it for I didn't have like a social media at the time or anything like that. Like I was just doing it quietly for me, right? And just trying also to almost not draw attention to myself because I'm like it felt like if people started being aware of it, then it was like almost too much pressure, you know? So I was just trying to do my own thing. And it was nice because I was living alone. So, you know, I only had to worry about cooking and doing and working out just for me. And, but then, you know, of course, like once I started going around my family and after I'd lost like 30 pounds, they were like, oh, you know, what are you doing? And then I was always met with support. And my family's always been amazing about that. Like they've always been very supportive. But yeah, then, you know, the comments about like, oh, you know, for Christmas, like, oh, are you going to eat any of this? Like, is this okay food to have? Which, you know, it sounds nice, you know, they're trying to help. But at the same point in time, you're just like, yeah, just treat me like a normal human. So
it puts focus on it. It puts
yeah,
pressure and pressure
right.
and let's say stress was some of the things which could
Exactly.
trigger your former habits. So I
Right,
understand
right.
trying
So
to
it's
avoid
like,
that.
yeah, it's like, I just want to be just, I'll just do my own thing. It's fine, you know? And now they're like so used to it. They're just like, whatever. But
Explain a bit more to me about that toolbox that you built, because it seems like a lot of the things that the lived change, which you
yeah,
explain, is more or less based on a toolbox or a building understanding driven solely by yourself.
yeah,
So I'm just curious about unpacking that a little bit. Like, where
yeah,
did that come from, and how did you actually go about it and keep building?
yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I started with 3 very small changes and just stuck with that until I felt ready for a little bit more. And I think one thing that benefited me a lot was I was curious about how other people were doing this in a healthy way, right? So then I started doing my own research. I started following other people on Instagram who had been on their own journeys and watching YouTube videos about people who,
Inspiration,
yeah,
not
exactly. Yeah,
comparison.
yeah,
Oh, right. Back
exactly.
to what we were speaking about.
Right. And, trying to understand more because I truly did want this time to be the last and final time that I started this kind of journey. And so, looking at and trying to understand how other people went about it in a way that was seemingly very healthy for them and allowed them to make, long-term habit changes and learning as I went along and, learning how to find a proper calorie deficit for myself and setting that and learning how to track food, learning how to cook, learning, what to look for in the grocery store. It was
So
just,
much to learn
yeah, one thing at a
when it's not
time.
taught from home or like
Yeah.
before, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a lot of, and we talk about it all the time, right? Habit changes. And, um, even with clients now, I'm like, it was learning how to undo a lifetime of habits that I had built, and um, kind of understanding that those habits had gotten me to a point where I didn't want to be. So I think that was like a big motivator for me to do things so differently was because I didn't like where I was, and so I wanted to build habits to get me to a different place. And yeah, so I just took it slow and just tried to learn as much as I could and um, gave myself time and patience. I think that was like the biggest thing was I didn't put a timeline on this. I didn't put a deadline on it. I just took it at my own pace and learned as I went.
And at what point do you start sharing your journey? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned that at one point you weren't on social media yet, but at some
Yeah.
point, clearly,
hmm
you start sharing this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I dropped about 50 pounds before I even made a post. And at that time, my Instagram's the Instagram that I've always had. So like if you scroll all the way back, it's just, all the things. And at that time it was just my close friends and family following me. So I'd made a post after I lost 50 pounds just to be like, hey, like I'd never done this before. I'm pretty proud, And it went, I was like, oh my gosh, so many people saw this because I had used like weight loss journey as a hashtag or something. And
Right.
other people started like commenting on it and asking like what I was doing. And I was like, oh, people are curious about this. So I slowly just started sharing more of my stories. And then I just started posting more so like milestones that I was hitting along the way. And then as more people kind of found my account, then I started sharing more so what I was doing, the kind of foods that I was eating, non-scale victories that I was experiencing. And yeah, slowly and slowly just kind of found this community and it was amazing. It felt like that was like the support that I had always kind of wanted.
Right, right. To explain that a bit more to me. So, I mean, you're in a position where you're actually still learning as you're going, which sometimes can make things easier to share and talk about.
Yeah.
But you're also getting support from the followers that you're gaining.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like doing this together with them, right? Especially because I was a newbie at this, like because I was learning. It was like I was learning from them as they were learning from me, and we were like doing this together and hearing from people who had already also been through their own journeys and again, like going back to that inspiration, learning and sharing and community is such a fundamental piece of, I think, a weight loss journey. And even though when I first started, like I really valued doing it on my own, I think more so I valued being alone on it in the beginning because I just wanted to give myself time to make sure that I could stick to it. Right. But once I kind of got into the habits and knew like, okay, this is something that's working, then it was like, okay, well, what are other people doing? Like, what are, I want to support other people. It's cool to see other people supporting me. And I think the weight loss community online, especially back when I started, which was in 2018, like it's a little bit different vibes now. But back then it was just a good time. Like everyone just wanted to see each other win. And there was like no competition. It was just like, it just felt like friends cheering each other on.
Interesting. You mentioned how is it different now?
I think because there's a lot of comparison, I think, more so than being inspired and motivated by others. I think people, and I think because the glorification of rapid weight loss also kind of came into the forefront, especially in like recent years.
Right.
I think people just, sometimes it can be a little bit of projection. Like if people are comparing their journey to somebody else, I think it just breeds, it can be a breeding ground for competitiveness or sometimes cattiness. But on my platforms, I try to keep it fun. And I'm really thankful that like my following has always just been not only supportive of me, but supportive of each other. Like I love seeing people comment on my posts of being like, oh, you know, I'm down 100 pounds. And like some, you know, other random people would be like, oh, that's so amazing. And so there are still genuine good people out there. It's just, I think the bigger social media has gotten, I think it's just a breeding ground
Makes
for
sense.
for everybody.
So at what point did this whole, because you mentioned it very much as building a community
Mm.
online and sharing and learning together. At what point do you start seeing this as a potential avenue for you
Yeah.
to leverage?
Yeah, I remember I was probably down like 100 pounds when I first got my first DM of someone asking if I was ever interested in coaching. Like, oh, I'd love to learn from you. I'd love to have you help me. And like that kind of planted the seed of like, oh, like maybe that would be cool. And because I think a lot of people in their 20s are kind of searching for their purpose, right? And like, I didn't go to school for business. I didn't go to school. And especially back then, like me being a health coach was definitely not on the top of my mind. But as I was like going through and seeing the impact of sharing my story could have on people, yeah, that seed kind of got planted. And I'm like, oh, like maybe that would be something that I would enjoy doing. And the more I kept sharing and the more that people were like, oh, you know, thank you so much for breaking this down in a simple way or whatever I was explaining. And I was like, yeah, like I love this. I love what it's doing for myself. Like I would love to help other people do this. So yeah, I went through, actually got certified. And at the time I was like, my kind of thought process was maybe I would just take like a couple in-person clients just to kind of see how it would go. Yeah. And then Lenus slid into my DMs and here we are. So,
And yeah, and then the rest is history. But let's unpack it a little bit because I mean, we clearly, again, you're taking action. I mean, there's so many times where it seems once you started, like taking action for yourself, it seems like something you continued to do,
yeah.
right? So you made that decision on the stairs, and now you're creating change. You got certified. It planted more than just a seed. It also it also
Yeah.
started to
Yeah.
grow, and now you're moving into starting an online business venture.
Yeah.
Did you believe in it? What did you think was going to happen?
I will tell you. So the first time I got on a call with Lenus, I I was like, this seems too good to be true, right? Because I, of course, wanted to have, you know, my own website and all of these kind of things. And like I had a vision for like what I would love to have a business be, but I had no idea how to do it. And so being on a call with them and having them pitch me like everything that I was wanting to do, I was like, this seems like a scam.
Yeah.
And
We've heard that one before.
yeah. And it was actually my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time, he was like, what do you have to lose? Like they seem really awesome. And why don't you, you know, reach out to, you know, a couple other coaches and see what they have to say. And it seems like everything that you're kind of looking for, right? And I think that's what scared me about it was like, oh, like you're just gonna help me do that, you know? And but yeah, after talking to, they connected me with a couple other Lenus coaches, and I talked to them about their experience, and they were like, "Girl, you do it. Like, if this is what you want to do, and you're ready and willing to go all in, like it'll change your life." So,
Amazing with the support from home, from your now
yeah,
husband,
yeah,
because sometimes it's the opposite, right? People might condescend the idea that you want to start a venture
yeah,
and lack of belief in either which opportunities lie there on you as a person and so on. It seems like you got all the opposite, which is an
yeah,
amazing situation.
yeah.
to
Alex,
be in.
my husband, he's my number one supporter. Like, he is my biggest fan through and through. He's amazing. Like, yeah, he was the one who was like, you should absolutely go for this. And we weren't together when I went through my weight loss journey. So we met like well after I was kind of finished with it. And even when I told him, I was nervous, to tell him, because we met on a dating app. And so I just used pictures of what I looked like then, because that's what I looked like. And it wasn't until our like third or fourth date. And I remember him being like, what's something I don't know about you, And I was like, well, I actually lost 140 pounds. And he was like, what? And I was so nervous to tell him because, I didn't want to scare him or something. And, but even right from then, he was like, that's incredible. Like, that's amazing. Like, tell me everything, And, with social media and stuff, he's like always championing for me. And for the business, he's been so integral in like helping me build it. Like, he would stay up with me late at night. And, he has done like graphic design things for me. He made me business cards. He's like 100% in. And it's just, especially because, becoming a CEO of a company is not an easy feat, and there's been times where, it can be emotionally draining, physically draining. And to have him kind of step up and be like, I got it. I got you. Like, I got us. And he's amazing.
There's not a household where there's an entrepreneur where it's not a household thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So either the support system's there and then everyone builds and grows together, or the opposite. Luckily, you had that support. It's an amazing story. So you're going from thinking, okay, maybe I'll do a couple of in-person clients, and but yeah, I'm gonna start this online venture, and things go quite well.
Yes.
Right. So tell me about that that start.
Yeah. So we launched Ambitious Coaching on November 13th, 2022. And I remember telling my key account manager, I'm like, you know what? I'll be happy if we get 10 clients. Like, if we get 10 leads,
10 is
I'm
fine. 10 leads or 10 clients?
Yeah, 10 clients. Yeah. I'm like, if we get 10 clients, I'm going to be so excited. Like, it will blow my mind. No, we had like, within, I think, the first 10 minutes, I think we had like 100 leads or something. Like, people were knocking down the door.
Was it panic or was it excitement? What was
a little bit of both. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. And it was a lot of, I remember that first month especially, it was like a lot of late nights, a lot of sales calls, because I was helping with the sales at the time. And within the first month, it got to the point where I started bringing on inbound sales, and I hired my first assistant coach within a month of launching. Right. And I don't even remember how many clients we went from launch to the first month, but it was enough where I was like, I can't do this alone. From there we had nothing but steady growth for almost the first 3 years of business before we kind of hit our little lull. But
which is quite a linear curve, which means that time, I mean, you hit almost 100 clients within just about the first month, and then kept growing from there to quite a substantial client number, because the curve was linear. And that's a lot of development, right? Now you're all in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're building a team and all that. Talk to me about going from one individual starting Ambitious Coaching to now building a team around it and finding the right people.
Yeah.
Because you spoke a lot about lived experiences also. Is that something that also reflects in how you build a team around you?
Yeah. It takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of weaving through and kind of making sure that the people you're bringing on really have the same values and principles and beliefs around weight loss as I do. And also something that makes our team really unique is that everyone has their own kind of health journey, whether it be, weight loss or some kind of other health journey, right? Whether it be, one of our coaches, her big focus is building muscle, right? So like, she's never really been super overweight, but like, she's very passionate about body recomposition. One of my amazing assistant coaches, she's been going through her own personal battle with cancer. So she brings another different perspective of, especially talking about like resilience. She's one of the most resilient people that I know, right? And resilience is such a big, key, necessary feature of any kind of health journey, right? So weight loss or other. And so we have one of our coaches who started as one of my first clients and went through, got certified, and now she's one of our coaches who's been in the business almost as long as I have, right?
So lived experience both personally and then through the coaching and now coaching.
So I think that's just such a big thing for us, is we want to be able to meet our clients where they're at as much as we can, not only through our expertise, but also through our own personal journeys. Because I think that just adds a layer of trust and comfortability that we can provide.
Yeah. I can see also based on the number of messages and satisfaction with that, you say building trust and comfort, that requires a lot of communication. I've heard you mention that, inner healing is key before starting a physical transformation. So could you explain to me a bit more about that approach and what you mean by it?
Yeah. We take a lot of time to get to know our clients and like not just, what they like, what they don't like. But we want to understand you, like who you are, how you got to where you are. What does your life look like? Tell us about your kids. What do you do for a living? Right. What's your relationship like? Who are you? Not just, how often can you work out and what are your meal preferences, which are also very important. But I think the more that you can understand someone, one, they're going to trust you more. And two, it allows you to be a better coach because you truly take like a more personalized approach with every single interaction that you have with that client then, right? And if they feel comfortable enough to open up to you, then you can also meet them where they're at on every stage of their journey, right? If someone's going through a really hard time but they don't feel comfortable to open up to you about it, and you're just sitting there being like, hey, why haven't you filled out your weekly check-in? Or, why haven't you logged your meals? It's like, well, in the background, they're going through this really hard time. And our clients, what I love most is that they know that it's a safe space, that they can tell us anything and that we're not going to meet them with judgment. We're going to meet them with support, right? And sometimes being a coach just means talk to me, just vent to me, let me in,
I mean, this really speaks into some of the, let's say, visionary principles that we also speak about with online coaching, that it has to be holistic, has to be personalized, has to be scalable if you're going to help more people, and it requires human connection. And what I hear you talk about here has such a high degree of real interactions, communication, right? It's quite a, it really debunks the myth of just a template approach. And create a plan, send it out to the masses, and then that's it. Because that's really not what this part of the industry is about. And I think it's an important thing to really communicate. Are there other aspects or other, let's say, myths that were kind of debunked for you in that time of moving into online coaching?
I think the biggest one was that it can't be personal. I think in a lot of ways, it's even more personal than in coaching can be, right? Or in-person coaching can be, because, and we talk about this a lot with clients, is, with in-person trainers, as amazing as they are, you get them for an hour, maybe 3 times a week, if you're meeting with your trainer. But with online coaching, like we're there 24/7. We're talking to you every day, right? And it just allows you to build so much more connection, to the point where like I had clients turn friends who came to my wedding, right? Like it's such a beautiful community builder, I think. And especially seeing, because community is such a big aspect for online coaching, seeing other clients find each other through it is something else that I think is really powerful, that you just don't get with other forms of training.
It also speaks into the whole support system and that which you mentioned lacking yourself back in the day. So it seems like you're kind of closing the gap on some of those challenges which you had before, right? So where's the support system around you? Where's the toolbox? What is a positive constant that can be present? Is it the food or the coaching? Because it seems now that they have something to lean on, that what you deliver can be the constant. Is that understood correctly?
Yeah. We tell clients all the time, like, we want this to feel like their safety net, right? Like something that they can always fall back on, and to help them kind of have a stable foundation, regardless of what life throws at them, right? Because we help clients through all different kinds of life events. And it's nice to be able to just at the end of the day, because like I said, sometimes our coaching looks like, hey, I know you're going through a really hard time right now. Like, if you just want to talk, I'm also here, you know? And I think that's what's really valuable about the space that we've created.
Amazing. And actually being present.
Yeah.
Because life happens. Nothing's constant, right? But I'm kind of curious to have you look a bit more into the future. So when you look at the next few years, I mean, you've been on quite a journey now,
Yeah.
right? And have a wealth of experience. So what do you see of like potential changes or things that you're excited about in the future regarding your business or you as a person?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we want to grow ambitious coaching to the moon. So,
I love the ambition.
yeah. So,
Perfect.
just, constantly looking for new things to add to the program, things to expand it, ways to make it bigger and better for our clients, and definitely scalable. I really have a great desire to do like in-person meetups with clients. So that's something that is kind of in the works. I would love to go around and be able to meet more clients.
Because you mentioned community.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
that you
such an
already
important
leverage
part.
as a pillar, right? So it seems
Hmm.
like something you really want to focus
Yeah,
on strengthening.
yeah, I just think it's such an important part, and I think what's really unique about all of the Lenus coaches is that we know that every single client brought wants to be there because of us, right? Like I have a deeply personal connection to every single one of my clients. And so that in and of itself is so special that I would like, it's my biggest dream to be able to go around and like have different meetups with clients and be able to like, do a workout with them or even just go out to dinner and just chat. And so definitely something that's going to be happening in the future. For myself, my husband and I are looking at buying a house later this year, which is so exciting.
Another chapter.
Yeah, we're so excited. Later next year, possibly looking at starting a family. And we love to travel. We're both big travel junkies. So, this past year we got married. We went to Italy. We went to the UK. Next year we're looking at going to the Philippines, China, and South Korea. So, yeah, just a lot of
A lot more
adventuring.
adventures to
Yeah.
come. Um, on you as a coach, I mean, you've really evolved as not just an individual, as a person, but also a coach who's continuously building your toolbox and then applying that for your
Mm.
clients. What are you really focusing on evolving now beyond the community aspect?
Yeah, I think we have some really exciting things. Like I was just in a meeting earlier about introducing Lenus Care, which is super exciting. I think that's going to be a really great game changer for a lot of our clients because GLP-1s are here and they're not going anywhere. And we want to be able to better support our clients who not enrolling on them currently, but maybe want to enroll in them in the future. And so that's something really exciting that
Mm.
we're all really excited about as a team.
Leveraging some of the macro trends that are
Yeah.
going on right now, right?
Yeah. And I think that's just, it's such an important aspect of being an online coach is like staying up on, what are our clients wanting? What are our clients doing? And being able to adapt to the different market changes and the world, right? Like we're always changing. And yeah. And then, heading into spring and summer, we're looking ahead to, hey, how do we, kind of get out of our winter funks and start to kind of blossom again. And so we're working on that with clients and putting together different challenges and stuff like that for them to help everyone get their spark back. So yeah, we're
Makes
excited.
sense. And I think I like the perspective that you brought on that because it's also clear that you're in this for the long game,
Mm.
right? And I think that's potentially also an important message to communicate in this because the reality is that most people in the, let's say, either physical or online training space aren't there for all that long,
Mm.
right? Because there's so many roadblocks that, well, any one of those roadblocks can basically turn the key on your business,
Right.
whether it's lead gen, whether it's sales, whether it's seizing the opportunities that are in front of you, right? So that whole aspect of adaptability,
Yeah.
of playing the long game,
Mm.
of being ambitious for
Mm.
still continued growth. I think that's such an interesting point
Yeah.
to bring across.
Yeah. I mean, it's really nice to have a team who's also just as excited about the business too. And like, that's something that I value about my group of coaches in particular is they get so excited about growing the business just as much as I do, right? So we truly work as a team. We're all very collaborative, and like they are, I think, just as integral in developing the business as I am, right? And what's also really beautiful is because they are working, very one-on-one with their pool of clients. And so they get different perspectives, even more so than sometimes I do, right? So they've brought really amazing ideas to the table that we've introduced and has helped shape and grow the business too. So it's nice to have that full team too. So they're amazing.
Amazing. So many chapters, and thank you for sharing your journey, to both as a person who I'd say has extreme accountability and shows grit for yourself, but also the chapters that you've gone through as a business owner.
Yeah.
I really look forward to following your next adventures, not just to the Philippines and other places, but with ambitious coaching. And hopefully we'll have you back here one day to visit on the podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Amber, thanks for a great talk. Before we've changed the scenography a bit, now we're on the walk pads. And what we're going to do is a quick blind ranking of a couple of different topics. And I want you to blind rank on a scale from 1 to 10, the impact that they have on people's health, happiness, and longevity. Make sense? Okay, so the first one would be sleep.
10.
10. That was a quick reply. How about counting calories?
7.5.
That's an interesting one. Unpack that a bit for me.
Because I think it's something you don't need to do forever, but I think it's a great tool to help you in the short term to understand food a little bit better. And it can help you build really healthy habits, but it's not something you have to do forever. But
So the inverse of that, how about focusing on habits?
10.
That was also a quick reply.
You have to have solid habits.
And just real quick, what are some of the key steps to building a sustainable habit?
I think something that is sustainable, realistic, but those are probably the biggest things, sustainable and realistic.
Sustainable and
realistic. And that can look
realistic.
different for everybody.
Right? Hence the personalizing aspect. How about community?
9.
9.
Yeah.
Very high.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I think obviously like you do this for you and ultimately it comes down to you and your actions. But I think it's undeniable that having a good support system around you and a good community of people who you can depend on and rely on, it's just good in every aspect of your life.
Makes sense. All right, we're going to mix this up a bit. Tell me about a secret talent that you have.
I can really badly play the clarinet.
So
it's not great, but I can do it.
So that spills into potentially the next one, but I'll challenge you to find a different one.
Okay.
What's something that you're really bad at that no one knows about?
Ooh, really bad at cardio, even though we're on walking paths.
Yeah, so bad and dislike might be around the same things. All right, so are there any fitness and health trends that you secretly like or are into?
Ooh, I mean, I love a green juice.
A green juice.
Yeah,
there you go.
I mean, even if it tastes a little bit like grass, I like it.
Just get it done.
Yeah.
All right. Some fitness, health trends that are going on right now that you totally disagree with. Do you have any of those?
I mean, I think definitely the glorification of being super skinny, because just because you're your smallest self doesn't mean you're your healthiest self. And I think especially for women, it's really important that we resistance train. It's really important that we focus on, getting quality protein and fiber into our diet, and not necessarily just chasing aesthetics, but actual health.
And on that note, Amber, we'll end the session. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Strong message to finalize it with. Thanks.
Absolutely.